And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So our first order on the agenda here is to introduce our new member. This is Amy Cordry. If anyone else, if you'd like to introduce yourself, we've kind of all made introductions already.
Gosh, yes, we already did that. Great to be here. I live in Cedar Valley, been there for 40+ years. Lived in Winona, traveled outside Winona, and here I am now.
Welcome aboard.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
welcome. Our next order of business is to elect a chair and a vice chair.
I move that Jordan Potter become the chair of the board and Kelsey Fitzgerald become the vice chair.
I'll second that.
Would be nominations then in that case? And then we can see if there are any others.
Yep, my motion was to have you be the chair and Kelsey be the vice chair. And if you want to call it a nomination, go ahead.
Okay. Well, we can vote on that since we have a second. All in favor of that, say aye.
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 Opposed? I'll say nay. So that motion passes. So I'll remain here as chair. And we can move on to the approval of the agenda. We have a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Kelsey and a second by Ed to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
I
Unopposed.
don't feel competent to approve the agenda. I read it, but I had no agency in it.
Okay.
So
I'll say abstaining, one abstaining. Approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I'll second. Sorry.
Go ahead, you can take
I
it.
have a motion by Ed and a second by Kelsey to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And one abstaining. Okay. So moving on to our first agenda item. Like Eric is ready for us.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to refer to your packet. It's been brought to my attention here by staff who kind of reviewed it, and Ann and Olivia credit. If you look at page 9, the rules of procedure, essentially we review those as they've been amended, and we just wanted to bring a potential correction to that under 1.1 of on page 9 under section 1 meeting. And that last sentence makes reference to the planning commission and to be staff's recommendation to strike that and to insert board of adjustment, just for consistency's sake.
Is that the only place we have an issue?
That's the only recommended change that we have, I think. Yeah, by how that got put in there, I don't know. There must have been gremlins.
So where were you talking about?
The very first paragraph under 1.1 under time, and that last sentence in that, it talks about when meetings shall be heard the third Thursday of each month, as so stated in the agenda. And when the regular meeting, the day falls on a legal holiday, that's going to get into our next agenda item too, where we have our recommendation. But there should be no Board of Adjustment meeting unless otherwise noted. If there are no agenda items, a meeting will not be held, and notice of the meeting cancellation will be made to Planning Commission. That should be struck, and to read Board of Adjustment members and posted on the county website.
I'd be looking for a motion to amend that item.
I'll make the motion to amend it accordingly.
Second it.
A motion made by Ed and seconded by Lynn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. So now we need to vote to adopt these again, is that correct?
Correct.
Make a motion to adopt them with the change.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Kelsey and a second by Lynn to adopt these as amended. All in favor, say aye.
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 With none opposed. Thank you. So now we'll be moving on to the liaison to the planning commission. I'm currently fulfilling that role. I do enjoy it and be happy to continue doing that if the board chooses so.
I move that Jordan Potter be the liaison on the planning commission on behalf of the Board of Adjustment.
Second.
We have a motion by Ed and a second by Kelsey for myself to remain as the liaison to the planning commission. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed.
Jordan, I wonder on that topic, could you just share with us and the new member what you do and sort of what happens at the planning commission?
Yeah, so I serve as a functioning member of the planning commission. But what I also do is a lot of the times when we see a variance here, there will be possibly a CUP or something to that nature connected to a planning commission item. So I'm going to inform the planning commission on what happened at our meeting as it relates to the issues we're discussing there.
Are you a voting member of the commission?
Correct,
also?
yes.
Good, thank you.
And not only that, he recaps all the variances that had been heard previously in the day. So the planning commission has kind of an update of what they were and the nature of them and some of the specifics. So
There's a lot of preparation that goes into you going to those meetings, isn't there?
Yeah, and sometimes it's kind of nice because the same site, when I do a site visit, pertains to both meetings. So
Yes.
it's not too bad. All right, with that, we will move on to the change of the next meeting, or the June meeting, sorry.
correct. The June meeting would happen to fall on June 19th, since it's the third Thursday. And that is now a legal holiday, so no government office buildings would be open for the observation of June 10th, which is now a legal holiday. So our recommendation is to move our meeting date up one day by placing that on Wednesday, June 18th. So hopefully that is in advance for everybody to make that correction, but we're trying to be proactive on that, so.
Probably a good time to be handling it. Would anyone like to make a motion in that regard?
Go ahead, Kelsey.
Please.
I make the motion to change the June meeting from June 18 to June
From the 19th.
From the
from the 19th. To whatever Eric said.
June 18th, the day before Wednesday. So
So we have a motion by Ed and a second by Kelsey to move the June Board of Adjustment meeting from Thursday, the 19th to Wednesday, the 18th. All in favor of that change, say aye.
Aye.
And we have none opposed. We don't need, we can kind of skip right over that.
if I could just touch on that
Sure.
quickly, that was posted in the Daily News for a variance, but after further review, that was taken from the agenda, essentially for the fact that there was a provision that due to a calamity with a fire in so many days that we received notification of that there is an exemption where a variance would not have been required. So we're pulling that variance and we're able to issue that administratively for that to be built closer to a township road than what the setback is. And this is a good opportunity to make sure, because it was published in the paper, just so if there's nobody in the room or online, just so we know what the status is, that is no longer needed at this point. So that's all I wanted to
Okay,
mention.
so I'll just state that that is for Lowell Jabs to replace an agricultural structure. If anyone online happens to be here for that, petition is no longer on the docket.
With that,
So we'll be moving on to our first docket number, BOA 01-16-2501. That is the petition of Nels Robert Ebson, seeking a variance from the rear yard setback.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Aaron Locker, so good to reacquaint myself with you. As you said, the request here is a variance to reduce a rear yard setback for a proposed accessory building. In this case, the accessory building would house a secondary dwelling, and this is a situation where you will have the same site in both the Planning Commission and the Board of Adjustment, because they'll be making that request this evening. So as I said, the proposal is a 150 by 50-foot accessory building, which may contain the dwelling, pending approval from the Planning Commission and the County Board. It would be in a location that would replace an existing building that is smaller, but at the same setback from the rear line. And the lot itself in question is a long-established homestead on about 4¼ acres. Here's the lot. You see in red in the bottom left corner, the outline of the proposed building. You see the blue polygons, those are existing homestead buildings. And then you see the white roofed polygon with the crosshatchers on it. That would be the building that would be removed. The proposal is to put it 20 feet from the rear line. The requirement is 50. It is 50 feet from the sideline. There, the requirement is 20, so it's essentially an inverse of the location that's required. Accessed off of County Road 19, just south of the Wilson-Wiscoy town line. Here you see the zoning overlay. The entire parcel and the area surrounding it are all zoned agricultural. I'll also point out to the northwest of the dwelling, you see the approximate location of the septic trench system. You see the well directly west of the house. And then, as I said, you see the two accessory buildings that were the remnants of what was at one point in time, an operating farm. So the ordinance citation here that they're asking relief from, it's the performance standard section, it's the rear yard setback. Language says for non-agricultural buildings, there shall be a minimum rear yard of 50 feet. I mentioned it was a long-established site, so this is a 1940 aerial. In the center there, you see at that point was an 80-acre farm, but you see the homestead and the buildings that by and large still exist today. Here we're looking at an oblique aerial of the site. You see the red outline of the building proposed there, again in the center. It's a hilly area, it's up on the summit of the ridge, fairly flat ground throughout that site. 4¼ acres. The town road you see if you move to the right of the subject parcel, that is also the township line. So that crossing that farm you see on the far right, that would be Wilson Township. I'll point out that directly to the rear of the agricultural building, you see looks like a cube at from this scale, but it is the home of H. Sharp. I point that out because I'll relay some comments that we received from him later. Here we are zoomed in, so we see a 3D rendering of what that would look like. Large building with the rear portion of it being the proposed accessory dwelling unit that's being requested. Some site characteristics. So there's some legacy challenges to this site based on the long-established homestead, farmstead layout where those buildings were placed, in large part dictates where they are now. You also see that this is a topographic slope map. So you're seeing areas in yellow being relatively flat, under 12%, and as it gets progressively more red, it gets steeper. So the bright red is a 25% or greater grade. And you see some areas there in front of the proposed building where you have those steeper grades, specifically closest to it, right in front. That is an old silo bunker. We may be able to see it from this. Kind of see it there too. It's not rendering in 3D perhaps as well as it could, but that slope map shows that that's a significant change in elevation right there. And then as you move closer to the road from there, you see you've got some remnants of other old foundations that also present some slope variation. So here on the left, you see a photo of the existing accessory building that would be removed. That corner to the back, that would be the rear yard in the background. You can see some fence posts. Those would represent the property line. The photo to the right, that would be the silage bunker that I referenced earlier. Some additional photographs here. On the left, we have hedgerow of trees, and then we have the T-post fence there. The T-post fence would be the property line. The applicant has communicated to staff that continuing to have access to that northwest corner is one of the reasons why the building can't be shifted further away from the line. And this represents what access would look like if access couldn't be gained from in front of the proposed building. To the right there, we have the portion of the existing house. We have some existing trees. That's the north line, so we're looking north there. So those trees serve as a windbreak. We also have the well location, approximately to the left of the, or not to the left, on the left side of the snow fence you see there. Permitting history, 1980, there was a septic permit issued. 1990, the applicant was before this committee asking for a setback to allow for an addition on the existing house from the existing septic system. And then in 1991, because the variance was granted, that permit for that addition on the house was granted. Public comments. So township indicated support for the project, and they stated the township believes there are no negative impacts to neighbors' ag use and property. And then we received the applicant provided an email with an attachment with a statement signed by H. Sharp, the neighbor whose home I pointed out earlier, saying that he supports both the variance application and the conditional use. Recommendation. So the committee should look at all materials and testimony before making its findings that support their decision. Staff analysis provides guidance for drafting the findings, but the findings themselves, as they were presented to you, were drafted by the county attorney's office. And should the committee recommend approval, the county attorney's office has proposed conditions. Any questions for me?
I was curious. From what I read, what I got is that the structure they want to build would have part housing and the other part would be agricultural. Correct?
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like. So then if they flip-flopped it so the house is on the other end, would they still need this variance because the setback would be closer?
So that's a tricky piece when it comes to this particular site. So one would think that that would make a lot of sense. The way the county ordinance defines agricultural building is any building on a parcel or lot that's primary purpose is agricultural production. So in this case, the primary function or purpose of this parcel is not agricultural production as it's defined in ordinance, but rather residential use. So without the dwelling unit in there, the building would be a residential accessory building. Now, they're proposing to use it for some purposes that one might look at and say, these sure look like agricultural uses because they're storing machinery and hay for a horse. But per our definitions, it doesn't fit neatly into them.
And what would an agricultural building be then?
It would be, and I'm paraphrasing here, but any accessory structure located on a parcel primarily devoted to agricultural production.
And theirs is zone residential or rural residential or agricultural?
This is zoned agricultural resource conservation.
Okay.
So is the use of the bulk of the property agricultural or not?
In this case, again, agriculture is defined in ordinance, so that's a production of commodities for sale or for on-farm use. Farm is defined, and I'm paraphrasing on all of these, but farm is defined as a parcel primarily used for agricultural production. So in this case, they don't raise any crops for sale. It's primarily residential use.
Now I understand.
Yeah.
So is the land directly behind the building owned by the Tessings? Is that all part of the same?
That's correct, yes.
And they have no issue with it?
I'm going to quickly jump to a map so we can talk ownership here. So I guess Tessings own land entirely surrounding the parcel. We didn't receive any comments from Tessings. The only comments that we received were from the town board and from H Sharp. We did provide notice to, I believe, 12 or 13 neighboring property owners. They hit our 10. So the Tessings were included in that notice.
And they've never had an issue with the existing building being that close to the property line? The Tessings?
None that I'm aware of.
Anybody in the neighborhood?
I guess the applicants have presented it to us as a harmonious relationship, but they will follow me up here. That might be a better question for them.
Right.
I have a question. I see it referred to as an accessory dwelling, and then I see throughout also referred to as a temporary residential accessory dwelling.
Yeah.
So which of those is the legal description that applies?
So accessory dwelling is defined in ordinance. Accessory dwelling unit or temporary dwelling unit, I don't believe those are defined terms. However, there is a permitting pathway for a temporary dwelling to provide healthcare for a family member. So they're seeking that approval from the planning commission. Let's just say the approval from the Board of Adjustment is granted and the approval from the planning commission and the county board is not. They would still then be able to build an accessory building at that setback, but they could not put a dwelling unit in it. So they need both to have both the distance from the property line and the use as a dwelling. The way that temporary or secondary dwelling unit works is that it's authorized for the period in time in which it's petitioned or asked for, kind of continues. So when they say the petitioner will be occupying the accessory building and his son will be occupying the primary, once that ceases to be the case, that permit will expire. So that's why it's temporary.
So it isn't a permanent dwelling. It would revert to just the agricultural building. It would no longer be available as a residential or someone to live in. Is that my understanding?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So then, under the signature at the end, it says that they're looking for a CUP, but in here it says interim use permit. So are they actually seeking a continuous use permit or an interim use permit?
Another peculiarity in the county zoning ordinance. So there was an amendment that is not incorporated in the full document that you have that says something to the effect of anytime you read the word conditional use, take it to mean conditional use / interim use. I think that's I might have included that in the packets. I think the way that that's worked is the applicant hasn't been able to decide what they seek, but rather the planning commission chooses what is appropriate and whether or not there's a identifiable end use or end time. Is that, Jordan, is that
Yeah.
your
that's-
understanding?
So yeah, anytime we've done one like this for temporary healthcare reasons, it would be an interim use.
Okay, that's what I thought, but.
Anyone have any other questions for Aaron?
Is the proposed septic for the accessory dwelling within the range of not needing a variance? I mean, they're not gonna have to come back for all the extra stuff later? Or is that something we don't need to deal with now?
I mean, there's no relief from a standard being sought for septic at this
Okay.
point in time.
Okay.
Would they use the original well? Are they going to run a line from the existing well?
That's an area that the zoning ordinance doesn't stipulate standards for, but that might be a question for the applicant when he comes up.
Aaron, my final question is, the condition number 3 that is being proposed. I've not been to 100% of the meetings, but I looked at this condition and it struck me as being new. I understand what I think the purpose might be, and this is on page 23 of the packet.
Yeah.
Would you explain for us why that condition is being proposed? Is it because of the residential use that is going to be part of the structure?
Perhaps that's not so it is being proposed. It was not the genesis of that is not me. So I guess I'll speak to my understanding of why it's being proposed. There's already language in the agricultural district that states, I believe, exactly this. So it really just serves to underscore this principle.
Is the purpose of the provision in the zoning ordinance as well as this condition essentially to put an occupant on notice who might be living in the building proposed to be constructed that they're essentially in an agricultural area and issues as recited in the condition may happen?
That is how I understand it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, I think that's it.
Thank you all.
If the petitioner would like to come address the board, you're welcome.
Good afternoon.
State your name and address just for the record, please.
As soon as I get the microphone set up here. Okay. My name is Nels Ebbison, and my wife's name is Kathy. We live just south of the Wilson-Wiscoy Township line. So as Aaron pointed out on the property that we're just south of Liberty Drive. We've lived there for about 33 years now. Both my wife and I appreciate the agricultural atmosphere and landscape of Winona County. Since 1990, when we first moved there, our property was separated from the original 80-acre farmland. And we tried to preserve the agricultural character of the area by using and reusing and repurposing the buildings, both the barn and the outbuildings that we have there, for our needs. So in keeping with the spirit of Winona County zoning ordinance and the Winona County comprehensive plan, the building we're proposing would be agricultural in design. In other words, it looks like an agricultural building, but would contain a single floor dwelling for in the internal to the outer structure. In other words, a building within a building. The comprehensive plan encourages this by recommending, and I'm quoting here, it says, the siting of allowed non-farm dwellings using innovative implementation techniques to reduce conflicts with agricultural uses, the end of quote. So the size of the building was determined by maintenance, storage, and personal workspace needs, as well as allowing a reasonable sized dwelling for us as elderly parents. When we as parents no longer need the residence, the dwelling space within the building would be usable only for non-commercial and non-residential purposes. The proposed building would retain a 20-foot setback from the rear property line, identical to an existing building that is on the property. And the property lines were established by a notarized survey in 1990. So we had when we originally split off the parcel, we actually had a survey made and everything. We have corner posts and so on, so we know exactly where our property lines are. So this rear yard setback would be the same as prescribed in the side yard setback in table 10.2 in the county zoning ordinance. And Aaron pointed that out. If the rear yard setback of 50 feet as prescribed in the table, and I'm speaking of the rear yard setback, was enforced, the building would need to be shortened by 30 feet to allow access to the south side of the building because of that bunker silo that you can see there. So we're leaving a space in between the building and the bunker silo, which stands about 6 feet up from the level of the ground, to be able to get our machinery back and forth if we have to have lawnmowers or tractors, whatever it might be, to get through there. We use it essentially as a hobby farm, if you want to call it that. Very, very small, but we enjoy the country, and so we live a country life there. If that building is moved 30 feet to the east, it will be essentially right on that concrete structure. So there'll be no access to get into the south side of the building because of what Aaron showed. If you look at the south property line, it's only 10 feet away from the bunker silo. Now, originally, when that property was set up, we were allowing the landowner, who is Doug and Cindy Tessin, to prescribe where they wanted the boundaries. And the idea was to keep as much agricultural land as they could. So you can see that the boundary lines lie on the trees for the windbreak. They lie right close to the buildings, very close to the bunker silo. And that's the reason why, as the original farmstead set the buildings in place, but setting out the property lines ended up causing us a little bit of constriction in that property if we wanted to use it for anything else. And so the long history of that farmstead and its layout presents challenges trying to move it other places. You have windbreak up on the northwest corner. We have an established apple orchard in front of the family dwelling there. The well is directly north of the building, and you can see the other buildings with the barn and the garage and the bunker silo in the other area. So there's really no place for us to go with the building except where we wanted to put it. We have spoken with all of the 5 closest property owners, and all of them have confirmed that they're okay with the original setback and also what we propose to do with the building. So that is what we would like to propose to you, that we ask that the Board of Adjustment would grant this variance to allow us to have the maximum usability of our property and the building. Any questions? I think I might have answered your question, Amy, about the residential portion of it. Basically the end date for it being a residence is if we're not here anymore. Right. That's the nature of everything that, as people pass on, then it becomes, the permit will be taken away for that particular structure. And then, according to what I understand in the zoning ordinance, they will have to apply for something else if they want to use it for that.
I understand that and understand that situation as well. I think a lot of us are in that situation. I did have a question about the well and the septic that Kelsey referred to as well. If you could address that?
Sure.
Someone?
The question from Kelsey about the septic was?
I just noticed in these bigger pictures, kind of the gravel or pad or whatever that is by the house part of your proposed site, which, as I've learned, is not a good septic site. So I'm curious from the pictures here, just a little bit more clearer as to where you're proposing that's going, and is that going to be within the setbacks?
Right. I don't seem to have a laser pointer here, but if you look at where the building is, there's an unoccupied area of land to the south of that, which is the bottom of the picture. And that septic system would lay. I'm gonna go over here. That system would be in this area right here.
Okay.
Another reason why we need to have this access here, this is too close to get any kind of equipment in there. If you need to do a bulldozer or you need to move things around. So if there was ever any problem with the septic system, don't have access here. We do not have enough room to get equipment through there without taking down the line fence of Dugganson to Teston. So, a major problem there. But and Aaron did not show it, but we did have a proposed septic system area in this area.
And then are you hooking up to their well or the same well?
Yes, same well, same electricity. The My Energy line you can kind of see right here. Goes up to that point, and at that point, the transformer goes to all the buildings, and we take it over to here also. Well is located right north of there, and there actually is water in this building right now, so we wouldn't have any trouble with that. We would just tap into that same water, so.
So why wouldn't you have planned it to go the same angle as the existing building? Yeah.
Suppose it could, but just we're trying to keep things compact. We use, these are raised garden beds, and we have space there for grandkids and so on to play and so on. So we're trying to keep as much open space as we could and move the buildings to the outside.
That's fair.
So, yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. Probably could. We could not put it here because of the septic system and the trees. We couldn't put it in the northeast corner, at least at this point, because you can't see it in this picture, but there's an established orchard there. We have about 15 or 20 trees.
Oh, that's nice.
So
Else, can I interrupt for a second? For the benefit of the record, this thing is
I don't have a laser pointer, so I couldn't stay here. What would you like me to repeat?
Well, if you're gonna be at the map, I guess.
Okay.
To be at the map, but wow, this week.
Okay. Maybe I could just reiterate that, for Kelsey, when we were talking about the septic system, the original documents that I presented showed south of the proposed building that there would be a proposed septic system there between the building and the property line. And to Lynn's question about why we didn't turn it, we were trying to keep as much open space on the property as we could. And so we were pushing the buildings to the outside. And speaking about why it would not move very well to the northwest corner, it was because of the windbreak that is on the property, and also the existing septic system for the primary dwelling. For the northeast corner, there is about a 20-tree established orchard there. So we felt that the best place to put the building would be to take down the loafing shed, which we don't use anymore. It was originally part of the 80-acre parcel, and they did keep cattle in it, but we use it just for storage now, so it doesn't serve the same agricultural purposes it did before.
They still use the bunker?
No, we just use, it's just there. It's concrete and it's very expensive to take out, so we just left it. There was other structures that have been demolished over the years, but that concrete structure was just too much to do, so it just stays there.
Now, do you live in the current house?
Yes, we just recently, my son has taken over the property. And
He would move into that house and you would move into the new one?
exactly.
Okay.
And so we would be just across the yard if we need any assistance. We're just trying to foresee the future and trying to prepare for things. So we're hoping that he can help us not only with healthcare, which we don't need right now, but also just to be around and help that way. He lives in Winona right now, so.
And then you've referred to when you're no longer here, what will they use with that living space?
And that's what I did say that, but it probably ran right by you, the fact that once we're not using that for residents, then it would refer to a non-residential, a non-commercial purpose. In other words, they would use it for storage or whatever else that's there. Could not be used for anything like a bed and breakfast or Airbnb or anything like that. And I believe that that's part of what the zoning people are putting in as requirements. Is that correct, Aaron? Maybe as a conditional use permit.
Right, I believe that because here they're asking to reduce a setback line and they're not asking for the residential use, that's the purview of the planning commission. There aren't conditions to address that in this ask, but there are conditions to address that in the application for the planning commission.
So in the future, his son could come and ask to use it for a bed and breakfast? I mean, it seems a shame to put all the money into building a residence and then just let it decay or store stuff in it.
Right, somebody could at any point in time come and make an application for any use provided for in that district. So it might be perhaps that would be it, or it might be, at some point in time, there might be another, family healthcare need as the generations kind of move through. But whatever it would be, it would have to revert to non-commercial, non-dwelling use, or a subsequent application would need to be submitted.
Would there be a future variance then under the conditions, the future conditions that you just mentioned, to split that property and just have access to that road, that county road, at some point and make that not a family related dwelling, but a totally separate residential dwelling? Would that be a variance that could occur?
Theoretically, I suppose that would be possible. It would likely require some or several conditional use permits,
Okay.
and it may also require some or several variances. But in theory, the minimum lot size is 1 acre. So this is a 4-acre parcel, and there are setback standards from many things, structures, for instance, septics. So doing so would likely be quite challenging, but in theory, it's not impossible.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, do we have any more questions for the property owner or the applicant?
I have one.
Yeah, Ed, go ahead.
Mr. Ebbison, I know you're not using the bunker silo or silos. If the building configuration remained the same and the bunker silos weren't there, would you then be able to properly move the building further toward the road or not?
That could be done.
It's
the-
my understanding that the bunker silos are not being used, but it would be very expensive to remove them.
Yes. And so we chose not to do that. We,
Are there historical aesthetics to those bunker silos or a historical value to them?
this one is sheer concrete, so I would say, in my opinion, no. There's nothing like a silo that you think of on the side of a barn that looks pretty. It's just concrete structure with wings on the side to prevent it from collapsing when you put silage into it. So in my opinion, it's not very pretty, but it's very difficult to get rid of because it's 8 feet tall from top to bottom, and it's 8 inches thick, and it's 72 feet long and 30 feet wide with concrete on the bottom.
So with it not being very pretty, it sounds like the significant financial cost to remove it is the reason why you don't want to remove it.
Could you state that again, please?
Is it basically the extreme high cost of demolishing the silo and removing it that causes you not to want to do that?
That is true. We hadn't thought about it at all because we were just familiar with the construction costs, so we didn't really think about it. We didn't realize that it would be as much a problem as we thought.
I'm not suggesting that you move it. I was just curious.
Yes, no, we had planned to just leave it there.
Thank you.
And we work around it. Our horse goes around it and he does his thing around there. He eats all the grass and he's fine. So as long as it doesn't bother anybody, it's out in the country. So we don't really worry about it much.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
That'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I would be looking for a motion to open the meeting to the public.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Ed and a second by Lynn to open the meeting to the public. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed? The meeting is now open to the public. If there's anyone else here or online that would like to speak for or against this petition, you can come forward to the mic right now and say your name and address and tell us what you'd like to say. For the second time, if anyone would like to speak for or against this petition, please do so now. Doesn't look like we have anyone online, so for the third and final time, if anyone would like to speak for or against this petition, please come forward now. With that, if anyone would like to make a motion to close the public hearing,
I so move.
to a second.
Second.
Motion by Lynn and seconded by Kelsey to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Aye. None opposed. So the public hearing is now closed. Is there any discussion on this?
I'm okay with the whole thing. I mean, it makes sense. The neighbors don't mind. Looks like they've looked into different possibilities and that's how we want to do it. So
I move to approve the variation request, including the findings of fact and the conditions recited in the staff report.
Do you have a second for that?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Ed, seconded by Kelsey to approve the petition as written, as the finding of fact are written and the conditions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. The variance passed. And now I will read the appeal to district court. All decisions by the Board of Adjustment in granting variances or in hearing appeals from any administrative order, requirement, decision, or determination shall be final except that any aggrieved person or persons or any department, board, or commission of the jurisdiction or of the state shall have the right to appeal within 30 days after receipt of the notice of decision to the district court in which the land is located on questions of law and fact. Any party that would like to submit an appeal to the decision rendered at the public hearing must do so to the district court. Planning and Environmental Services is not responsible for filing the appeal or obtaining representation by counsel for the petitioner. And now we will move to our second item Docket number BOA 011625-02. The petition of Landon Jorgensen, also represented by Skip Weezer, who seek a variance to the Winona County subdivision regulations.
This application is essentially a request due to a change in the surveying that affected an existing subdivision. This centers on the Zenke subdivision, which was platted in 1980, and it also is a result of kind of a meets and bounds described area that's outside the subdivision. The variance is due to the fact that they are changing a couple of the lots that are within the subdivision in a kind of housekeeping order of business as far as trying to make it more reflective of the existing terrain. This would be from the subdivision regulations, sections of the ordinance. And I believe there is a couple of paragraphs that talks about in chapter 15, 1.3, any plat hereafter made. It goes on quite a lengthy paragraph, but it says when you have a situation where there's 3 or more lots, including the re-subdivision or replatting of lots, that's the threshold in which a person or a party or a developer would actually have to start presenting a series of preliminary plats and final plats. Without this variance, they'd have to go through 4 public hearings to the Planning Commission to do an amended plat. But these lot lines that are corrected in the form of a variance such we have today is kind of a due process in order to avoid a full-blown going through the platting process. We'll get into some of the specifics. This is located in the village of Nodine, New Hartford Township, and there's 3 parcels in which the applicants own, kind of stated there, designated by the 08 and the series of numbers. The 2 that end or that have the middle number 005 represent the ones that are in the subdivision, and then the last one is the area that's along Moore County Road 12. The property is zoned CD, community development, such as the core of the Nodine area. There is access for the one house off of County Road 12, as well as there is a secondary access on Traven Court, which was a platted street as far as that subdivision. Copy of the original plat of the Zenke subdivision. And if I can just step here to kind of, the existing farmhouse is located on the non-platted area, and they intend on dividing that and to clean up this. And also this lot 4 is part of the property, in which you'll see some pictures and some other slides, but the hypothetical line would be drawn here, and then this would be added to this parcel. We received a survey that's being proposed by G Cubed Engineering, and this essentially shows the deviation of the property lines in order to fit the existing buildings. You can see in the parcel A, that is a part of the majority of that is not part of the subdivision, but they wish to adjust that due to the chunk of woods. And they also, as a matter of fact, a point of sale to upgrade the septic for that house will need that area and that open space and to adjust those property lines to accommodate that. The applicants in their statements have indicated they wish to retain the lot with the proposed parcel B with the existing buildings to utilize it as cold storage. Lot 4 or parcel C would be reconfigured as a hypothetical remnant of lot that potentially could be built upon as far as that subdivision of Zenke's. That's considered lot 4, and you'll see some pictures of that. kind of zooming in, kind of just showing that it's the lot 4 and lot 6, and also the accepted area that's outside the subdivision. Another diagram showing the nature of that. Looking at the standards for the CD district, if the variance is granted, it would not decrease any street frontage nor square footage or lot size for those standards for those existing buildings and lots. Picture on the left shows the existing house that's in question, located at 42611 County Road 12. And then the picture on the right is showing the driveway looking into that property. You can see one building in question on the left, as well as then there is additional buildings that are immediately behind that, kind of located to the south of where that proposed division line would be. Picture on the left here is kind of more to the southwest, and it shows the other building there that's in question. And then the one on the right shows that a brown building is the one that's exactly right behind the other building in that area. It's also looking at that lot 4, kind of that grass area, and then the area in between the two buildings. I think on the last set of pictures is kind of showing what's left of that lot 4. These pictures are the view from the subdivision street, Travancourt. The applicants did meet with the New Hartford Township Board, and on December 12th, and they indicated that they had no comments in regards to this request. The board, the way that the report has been presented is that, I hope it wasn't confusing. One thing I wanted to point out, I know when the county assistant attorney looked at this, we did have the summarization on a co-applicant. That was Mr. Skip Weezer, who was representing the petitioner, and they did their best job to address all the findings. So that's in your staff report. I think just looking at my packet, I just want to say the petitioner's comments on page 49 through 50 are the comments that we received from the applicants on how, in their words, the findings were being met by this request. Staff further went on from pages 52 to 53, and that's staff's position, and the way the staff report has been presented, it's recommending approval with the one condition. And then also the county attorney's office provided findings of fact based on the report and the information from pages 54 and 55 with one condition on 56. So with that being said, staff would recommend that consider all materials and all testimony and the draft findings and draft condition as recommended. And the applicants are, I believe, here to answer any questions or to elaborate on any points that I may have missed. But with that, is there anything I could answer?
Yeah, could you go back to one of the maps? Just trying to orient in my head where it is, like where's I-90 and how are you coming into Nodine?
Okay.
and stuff?
I-90 is up to the north here.
Okay,
And 12 is the one that goes south, and this is the village in Nodine.
and where do you turn and go to Apple Blossom Drive?
Well, you can turn right here. This is where the T stop is. So
Okay.
this is 5, goes down to New Hartford. Take 5, that goes back out on the ridge to get out on County Road 1 or Apple
Okay.
Blossom. But the school, the church, thus it's a CD, community development, it does have that flexible zoning that allows for residential and allows for other mixed uses to occur within the CD core district. They try to It probably doesn't show up very good, but this is the actual zoning map for the area. CD is kind of showing a 300-foot corridor on each side of the county road in this area. And then it's showing this whole block of 40 being designated as community development.
So where on there is the stuff we're talking about here?
Okay. The existing house is on this parcel. This remnant of this lot, one thing that happened prior to the county having a survey ordinance in 2006, I believe it was Lynn Gellerson, who was a contractor by trade. He operated heavy equipment. I believe he's now deceased. And that's how this property has been transferred now to this new applicant. And at some point, he acquired this chunk of woods. He wanted more yard. So they did that. Technically, if we had a survey ordinance, we'd get a chance to review it. And we would have said, no, actually, you're altering an existing platted lot. And the only recourse you would have would be either go through the platting process, or you can come and appear in front of the Board of Adjustment for a variance. So that's trying to undo this, or to recognize that that had been done in 2006, contrary to technical right approval for it. So it's this portion here, and they'll be changing this, and they'd be changing this line. So it's dealing with these segments, I guess.
Okay, and then that green line says Trav something court.
That's a street. Yep, this is
Okay,
this
so
is
that's-
actually a street.
That's how you get to the lots there.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's residential houses that. This action is not requesting to create new building site or a new lot. This is essentially just an alteration of some of the lot lines, and it's involving an existing subdivision. So that's really the heart of the issue in front of you.
Some lines are wrong, basically.
But yeah, they're altering some of the property lines.
And so we're essentially eliminating that little corner parcel then?
There'll still be 3 parcels. Sorry.
Oh. That chunk of lot 6, I guess I'm saying that. Is that a separate parcel currently?
That little corner piece of it, yes.
Okay,
Yep, it's got its own parcel number.
so that, yeah, that would be going into what is called parcel A on here?
Be absorbed.
Is that where the proposed septic system then would be put? Is that why you kind of want that parcel and use it that way?
Yep.
I meant the remnant?
Yep, that little corner.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay,
correct.
okay. That's how I understood.
Is that the overarching purpose of what you're doing here, is to get
I'll just.
land for a septic system?
We can do this,
And to sell off this house. So we just bought the property to use as cold storage. And we want to sell the house. It's built in the early or late 1800s, very, very good condition. Yet we have a
Thank you,
buyer
Ed.
that wants to buy it. So we want to include this. So we want to include this corner section that Lynn bought years ago with the house, and then square it off nice behind this building, just so it kind of incorporates that back corner.
Do your finger again around that parcel.
So this is the little corner piece
Yep,
that would be included with this piece.
okay.
Then we would take a section of this parcel off of this piece, so it's square on the building. So we have the setback off the buildings on both sides, and they have this as all their yard. And they have access from County 12 into their garage with an easement. They wanted to pour a approach for outside their garage, so then they would be able to swing into their garage and make it.
before we go any further, can you just state? your
Yeah,
name?
sorry, Landon Jorgensen. I'm representing Fire Protection Sprinklers. We're the owners of the property.
Okay, and your address?
39984 Echo Valley Drive, La Crescent.
Thank you. Does anyone have any more questions for him?
So would it just basically, it would just show then the whole parcel is then owned by that one person, not like, oh, that little square
Correct.
triangle is owned by them and then this chunk is owned by them. It won't-
Correct. So what it is, it'll be, right now it's the 3 parcels, and it's still going to be 3 parcels, just in homeowner's name. And then these two parcels will be in our name, Fire Protection Sprinklers, with the idea that maybe in the future that we can sell this parcel off. Currently, my brother owns this parcel here. The water, this well actually feeds this property, this property, this property, this property, and the next. There's five people off of that well. I received a call from Randy Hefner about this. He was wondering why he was gonna lose some property line up there. And I explained to him that it's just a rough draft of what we're doing. His lines won't change at all. I actually spoke with him for about 35 minutes. Where I live now, his grandpa used to own years ago. He was just curious as to why. And then he also showed interest in potentially purchasing this lot in the future if we do decide to sell it.
So that north-south line you said made it look like someone's property line was changing. That isn't really accurate.
So the white line is the accurate line. That's off Beacon. The yellow line is the proposal that the G Cubed wrote up for separating the three parcels. This would be the one parcel. And then this would be the second parcel, and then this would be the third parcel. So it's still saying three parcels.
And why is there a white line going over that house? What is the white line?
I'm not sure. You'd
I
have
think
to go
that the
back.
former, I think that was 2 lots before, and that house is on,
Oh, so they bought
Both of
two
them.
lots and then just built the house.
yeah.
Right.
in the middle. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, right now, we actually rent these buildings from the Lynn Gellerson estate. After he passed, he wanted his grandson to have this is his original shop where he did all his work out of. So this is gonna be Brody's shop when he comes of age. He's only 13 now. So at 18, he'll have the decision to if he wants to sell it or keep it or whatever. So we are renting it until he turns 18. And then we use both of these buildings combined to store stuff, and then as well as the loafing open front shed.
Is that required to be surveyed then and registered?
As far as what we're doing here now, yeah.
At this point, after 2006, anytime you create deviations of parcel lines, you do have to file a survey along with that.
And that's why we're doing this, to avoid having it all replatted, for just kind of squaring everything up with the properties that are there. It wasn't that long ago, probably 6 years ago, that he actually had cattle in this feedlot that my brother and I have known him for many years, Lynn, and we would help him clean the cattle pits and haul the manure out and everything. So it was not that long ago he did that. Always, like you said, always ran his excavating business out of there. We know all the neighbors surrounding. Like I said, the only one was Randy that called. I talked with him, and after I explained to him that he wasn't going to be losing any property, he was absolutely fine with everything.
Any further questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing at this point.
That's a move.
Motion by Lynn, seconded by Ed to open the public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Unopposed. If anyone would like to speak for or against this petition, please come forward to the microphone or make yourself known online. Again, if anyone would like to speak for or against this petition, come forward. For the third and final time, if anyone would like to speak for or against this petition, please come forward. So I'm looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
That motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Ed, seconded by Amy to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Aye. None opposed. Any discussion? I think it all looks pretty reasonable to me.
An improvement.
Yeah, cleans things up a bit. Anyone like to make a motion on this agenda item?
Well, I move that we pass it as it is.
A second on that?
Second.
We have a motion by Lynn, seconded by Kelsey to approve the variance. Is it a variance, Eric? As it is written, with the attached condition. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. So the appeal to the district court, once again, all decisions by the Board of Adjustment in granting variances or in hearing appeals from any administrative order, requirement, decision, or determination shall be final, except that any aggrieved person or persons or any department, board, or commission of the jurisdiction or of the state shall have the right to appeal within 30 days after the receipt of the notice of decision to the district court in the county in which the land is located on questions of law and fact. Any party that would like to submit an appeal to the decision rendered at the public hearing must do so to the district court. Planning and Environmental Services is not responsible for filing the appeal or obtaining representation by counsel for the petitioner. And with that, our last agenda item is adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Kelsey, seconded by Lynn to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.